I hear, go get the money. So I go get it. Hate means I do something right. So I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him. I hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I'ma let him. All I hear, go get the money. So I go get it.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here is Daniel Smith.
What is going on, everybody? Jets Guru in the house for yet another episode. Super excited to have you guys on. As in each and every week, I really thank you for your participation, all the shares, all the likes, all the comments. We're growing the page each and every day. Super excited. Let's keep it rolling. Let's get me on TV. Let's get me somewhere where I can ask the tough questions, ask good questions, and give a really good fan take on how the New York Jets are doing things. And we start by sharing, right? So if you guys can, please share me. We don't curse. We don't talk politics. We are on Facebook on Jets Guru. We're on Twitter at Guru Jets, Instagram Jets Guru. And if you're on YouTube, which would be a big help, please subscribe on Jets Guru on YouTube. Now, listen, I'm super excited about what's going on with the Jets right now because like we discussed prior to all the hirings and the firings and everything, the number one thing that the Jets needed to do was to empower Joe Douglas. And they did that. They were able to do that. The Jets were able to do that because the owner finally came out and said that Joe is going to have a big input on who's going to be the head coach of the New York Jets. And I thought that was important for him to say right from the jump. Because you want to let other coaching candidates, you want to know players, you want to know assistants, and everybody know that this isn't going to be a Johnson job. This isn't going to be Peyton Manning calling and saying, I love this guy. It is going to be based on football maneuvers and football plays. So, I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, when is it going to happen? Is it ever going to happen? And it did. And it happened like we talked about. And Joe went and hired Mr. Saleh, and I'm super excited because he's a guy that's a complete change of character. I mean, you couldn't ask for a different type of head coach to come in than the one that was just here. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's just, he says it all the time, juiced. He's juiced up. Well, I'm juiced up. If you ever meet me, I'm a passionate Jet fan that's super excited about the game. And it's been tough watching this football team year after year after year fail. And I like guys who have a little swag, a little attitude, who get juiced up because I get juiced up. And I don't even get to play, or I don't do any of that, right? I'm not getting paid to do Jets Guru. I do this on my own because I'm super excited. And now, while I may have aspirations, this is a passion of mine. And I'm loving the staff too, Anthony, that he's putting together. You're talking about Mike LaFleur. You're talking about Ulbrich. I mean, now with Ulbrich, it's going to be new for him. He was with Raheem Morris and the Falcons, and when they lost their head coach and Raheem got promoted, Raheem promoted him. And all the Falcons did was get better on defense since that guy started calling plays. And what Saleh is going to be doing, like he said in his press conference today, is that he's going to empower his assistant head coaches to call plays, which is completely different than what we're used to. Because with Adam Gase, it wasn't like that with Low Gaines. I don't care what anybody says that he helped me install it during the week. You empower your coaches. These are people that you brought in because they're competent football minds. So it seemed like there was no one there to check the captain. Like, hey, we're steering off to the right, buddy. You might want to straighten out, right? So it's one of those things where I'm super excited for Saleh to come out and say, I'm going to empower my guys. I'm not calling plays on game day. I'm going to be a head coach. And that's what the Jets need, because you look at the last few coaches that have been here, right? Time management, halftime adjustments, all have been issues with the New York Jets. They've all been issues. And there's no denying that. That's what it's been. No growth. And I want to see that from my head coach. The head coach is not supposed to be sitting here calling every play. That's what your coordinators are for. They install the defense and offense that you accept, and they teach it. The players go out and they perform under said system. During the game, I'm looking at adjustments. I'm looking at what the other side is doing to me, to my football team, to my scheme. And it's my job as a head coach to help devise a way to go around that. So as my defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator calling plays, I could say, hey, maybe we shift up in this way. Maybe we do this. Maybe we call this. Maybe we move this guy here. Hey, even though they're calling the plays, maybe he's moving guys in and out in certain places. A guy looks down, he's going to give him a pep speech. A certain unit's down, maybe he does that. Maybe he's giving high fives. He's looking at the clock. He's looking at how much time is left. He's looking if he should call a timeout set up for 3. He's looking at further into the game. He's doing everything around the football team because he has empowered all of his assistant coaches to do what they need to do throughout the game. And with Gase, you saw him just sitting, writing by himself. He's picking the plays. How could you call plays, right, for one unit, completely forget about the defense and what they're doing? Who is looking down at you and what you're doing to say, hey, I know you're calling the game? Because it's different when you're doing something. When you're calling something, it's different than looking at it from the outside in, right? And that's the job of the head coach. And so when your offensive coordinator is calling plays and you're going, man, we need to switch this up a little bit, because from the outside looking in, you could see a change needs to be made. But when you're the captain, you're the boat, you're the assistant, and you're everyone, where do you get the outside oversight to check yourself? And so right away, you can't get someone any different than Adam Gase and then Saleh. And I love it. I love the coaches he's bringing over. I love the swag and the attitude. I like the fact that he's a head coach that seems to put the players first in the game plans, right? Instead of just trying to just throw the game plan on top of the player. He's adjusted each of the last 3 years and responding to how people attacked his scheme as a coach. That's why he went wide 9, was to try to get to the pass, to get to the quarterback through the pass rush. And yeah, you give up a little bit in the run, but that's not where they were getting killed. And so he wanted to take it to the next level in the passing league. And he looked at the type of personnel he had. He made the adjustments. He switches from a cover 3 to cover boundary lock. He moves around because of the players that are on his roster. Everything could be fit and scheme. These are professionals and they're talented. But you want to get the best out of each individual player, and I think that's what he's going to bring here. And it's nice to know that he is bringing over some fresh faces that are welcomed around the league to call offense. Because the last time we had a young guy who could come in and call offense was Mr. Morton. And that's the last time a Jets quarterback really looked on the up and up, in my opinion, in full time. And so, I'm looking at the scenario and I like it. And if Sam Darnold, if I believe so much, listen, in the beginning, for what we could say, because we don't know how it's going to turn out, but for the type of personality, Krista, the type of coach, the type of press conference, the type of background, the type of history, players vouching for these guys that are actually playing today and play for the actual head coach. How many vouches were Adam Gase getting going to? Someone said he got hired by Houston. Was that a joke? Was that a joke that somebody said? Or is that real? Someone
That's first I've heard of it. Yeah, someone needs to confirm. That's the first I've heard it. That's
dude, I would laugh. I would laugh
too.
because what coach is getting a third opportunity to be a head coach after failing in the last 2 spots? The quarterback's regressing in the last 2 spots. Maybe you should get knocked down a peg and go back. Because, when you look at Gase, what does he look like to you? He looks like a guy who belongs in a booth somewhere, writing and scribbling and doing all those types of things, or a film guy, right? He doesn't look or act like a head coach. No. And so, Krista, you were there for Gase. You weren't here for Saleh, but I'm sure you watched the press conference or some of it. And what is the biggest difference that you see in this head coach over what we had in Adam Gase?
I think the biggest thing I took away is, like you mentioned before, is the amount of swag that he brought in. I like the all gas, no break. That's something that's always going to stick in my mind, because that right there, that goes to show, like, how committed he is. And it just seemed like when he was there, it seemed like it was home to him, like he really loved being there, like it was his job. You could tell that he wanted to be here. It's not like when I went to Adam Gase, he kind of was like, kind of felt lost in the little way. And I felt bad for Adam Gaze's first press conference because everyone was kind of making fun of his eyes and all that stuff. And with Saleh, it's all business, all love. He loves the fans. I really appreciate it. It seemed like he genuinely loved his job, and this was the type of job that he wanted all along. And it was just really refreshing to hear. I didn't get to hear all the press conference, unfortunately. I did bits and pieces. I was at work, but from what I got, it was all swag, all business. Loved it. And I think the biggest key for the Jets was, like you mentioned before, you see how many players vouch for this guy, say how they were surprised that it took this long for this guy to get the opportunity. They love playing for him. There's so many guys, even now. You hear Richard Sherman just praising this guy still. And you have former 49ers players saying, oh, guys, look, Jet fans, you're getting a heck of a coach. Like, that's one bit. That's all the praises that he's getting around the league. I don't think I've heard really anything about Adam Gase when he was first hired. I haven't heard any former Dolphins or anything like that, or even when people say, look at what he did with Tannehill. I never heard Tannehill even really stick up for him after all the criticism. You'd think that after he revived Tannehill, maybe Tannehill would have stuck up for him, but nope, nothing. And I think it goes to show the kind of coach that we're getting. We're getting a good person, getting a good coach. He seems to really, really with fans. He loves the fans, and that's something with Adam Gase. He never had that connection with fans. I felt like that kind of connection that he had with us was lost. But when you listen to Saleh, it feels like he's with us. He's one of us, if that makes any sense. He's committed to make the team better. With Gase, there was kind of a disconnect between us and the fans, and it's just so refreshing with Saleh. And whether Sam Darnold's here or not, I'm excited to see what happens because with Saleh as head coach, I haven't felt this good in a while. I felt like there's some sort of direction with this coach, and I haven't felt that way in a while, having some sort of direction. It was really nice and refreshing to hear.
Absolutely. And when it comes to Sam Darnold, like I honestly, in my opinion, do not think that he's the future. But if this coaching staff, who at least in the beginning here, you know, I tell people all the time, they're like, well, I think the Jets are going to do this. I think they're going to do that. Well, listen, I don't know, and neither do you. And you don't, you know, I can only go based off of past information. With this coaching staff, all their past information has been good work. And so even though Sam Darnold hasn't put in the best work, I'm thinking that he's a better quarterback today than he was 6 months ago because moving forward, I think they're going to put him in the right position. And listen, if LaFleur and Saleh's ability to let his coaching staff really work and not really push buttons, if they can't rescue Sam Darnold, I don't know how many other places could. If they decide to roll with Sam Darnold for another year, I'm going to accept it. I'm not going to be one of these pages that's going to go in on Sam Darnold every single day, every single week, and just be like, I'm just literally going to say, you know what, for this year, I'm just going to play it how it is. If he plays good, great. If he could play in back-to-back games and string it together, then maybe we have something. But if he fails, I'm just going to be flat out, listen, he's probably going to go next year. To me, I think the Jets, they shouldn't personally start off this new franchise. You know, you got Joe Douglas on 5, you got Saleh on 5. You probably have this offensive coordinator for maybe 2 years before he starts to get offers. Why waste it on someone that you're not 100% sure and you didn't draft? That's just my personal opinion right now. But if they do roll with him, then you have to get him up to speed fast because, one, you're going to have to decide on his fifth-year option in May, which will pay him $25 million in his fifth year. And I know a lot of people say, listen, you could just get rid of him. You don't have to pay the $25 million. The problem is I want something for Sam Darnold. Yeah. I don't care if it's a second or a third or a fourth-round pick. I want compensation for, I believe, could be a starting quarterback somewhere or a very good backup to a veteran, at least for a while. And I want something because I drafted him. And so I think if you're going to make the move, the time is now because you want the team that's receiving him to make the decision on the fifth-year option. That is the value in getting Sam Darnold. If you take away the option for Sam Darnold for another team to choose his fifth-year option, then what's the point? So I want to let another team evaluate him and choose and make that decision. I don't want to have to be that team. And so looking at it, I'm not sure where the Jets are going to go. I truly believe, and this is just me, my personal opinion, based off of listening to this guy and the type of staff that they're bringing in, they're truly going to evaluate the quarterback position. And if Mike LaFleur thinks that he can handle Sam Darnold and fix up, the turnovers, and they believe that they can stretch the field on the outside, because that's what you need in this league. We've discussed it. Ryan Tannehill, and mind you, Tannehill was a better quarterback statistically than Sam Darnold with Adam Gase than Sam ever was. That is one guy who's surrounded around a run with Derrick Henry that is one of the best of all time. And they have a good coach. They have this and that and that. And when you really need Ryan Tannehill to throw you back into a game, that is usually where he falls off. You can't really see the Titans getting past the second or the third round with the type of quarterbacks that are in the AFC and what the AFC is going to become, especially once some of those NFC quarterbacks start retiring. You're going to have the AFC most likely be the more dominant class. And when you're looking at your stay as a 5-year coach, that has to creep into your mind. So you want to get the ball rolling right now. You want to get LaFleur teaching this guy up. So if LaFleur winds up leaving after his second year, that third year, that rookie quarterback on his third year should be able to take up, and you can bring a new offensive coordinator in, and they could kind of trade and bring the new style with some of the things that quarterback does well. But if you fail here, now you're still searching for a quarterback. You draft your quarterback. LaFleur coaches him for 1 year before he starts getting really good offers. And I'm not comfortable with that if that's just me, right? So there's a lot that goes into this decision other than just looking at statistics. There's time frame. There's what's going on with the AFC, what's going on in the division, what is going on. Like that all matters in where you want to place your chips. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to see. But when they do make that decision, I'm all in for it. Now, you have some people in here, now that we have a new head coach, they want to know, Guru, how many wins do you think that Saleh has in his first year? Again, it's all going to come down to, who's the quarterback? What are the pieces around? If you can get a guy like Allen Robinson, and we're talking about receivers today, Allen Robinson is obviously the big time, guy out here in free agency. If you want to go after someone, he had an absolutely monstrous year. When you look at Allen Robinson, and especially when you think about who he was playing with as far as his quarterback situation, you're talking about 102 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 6 touchdowns with Trubisky and Foles as your guy. And that guy was out and injured, and Trubisky was on the downturn. So you're talking about a guy who played 16 games. He played in 911 snaps out of all the free agents. That's like top 3 in usage as far as snaps are concerned. So you're going to have to pay this guy. Listen, he made $14 million in 2020. He's only 28 years old. He's going to be looking to cash in on his last pretty much big time deal. And I think he's going to deserve it for a 3 or 4 year deal. And if the Jets want to go that way and then protect Sam Darnold, maybe they pick up Sewell in the draft, or they trade down, pick up some more options, maybe Najee Harris, and they start filling out this roster. If Sam Darnold, if he is the starting quarterback, Krista, he has to have immediate results. Yeah. Because you're a 4th-year quarterback. And that's another thing that we have to talk about that's an issue too, is because there's going to be tons of pressure on this kid. New coach, new offense, his 3rd playbook, in 4 years. And there's going to be pressure on him because I shouldn't be seeing the same mistakes, even in a new playbook on your 4th year. And if he comes out and he plays like he did last year, this is going to be an awful start to the Jets. And there's only so much rah-rah and this and that you can get when you're losing games and everyone's looking at you like, didn't you watch the game tape? This is the same guy who was here last year. We had a chance to get Deshaun Watson, and you could get Watson and still have 1st-round picks. You could still have a 1st-round pick this year and next year, give away the 2 other picks, and give away your 2023. So you could have Deshaun Watson, still draft a 1st-rounder, the next year. That's insane, right? You could go and draft a guy that you feel is the guy you could move forward in the future with, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, whoever they feel comfortable with. So there's options here. So it's not like the Jets just have to take Sam Darnold. I think you see all these reports that are coming out. It looks like it's going to be Sam Darnold. Okay, people said that about Josh Rosen and many other players before, that he's our guy and he's here to stay. What are you going to say? Be honest. What are you going to say? oh yeah, we're moving on from Sam Darnold before they even trade him. Come on, of course they're going to talk up their quarterback. That's what they're going to do, right? Yeah, he's a guy that has the skill set, everything you see. I heard Saleh talking about him today. I'm like, where? Like, I commend his toughness. I haven't seen anything outside the numbers that have been impressive. I haven't seen him control his turnover and his interception rates from college to now. I see him getting worse on the outside, because he taps the ball, he's looking, and he's locking on one receiver. Those are things that you see from a first and second year quarterback. He's going into his fourth year. And so, you're putting a lot of trust into this guy. And I don't know if that's where the Jets go. But if they do, I'm hoping that they're going to turn it around. But I say, right now, if we just go with this roster as it is, even with Saleh, this is still a 4 or 5 win team at best. You got to give me some of those pieces that I was telling you about. I need a pass rusher. I need at least a number 2 corner. I need a wide receiver. I need a center. Because unless you believe McGovern's going to come in here and do some good things, Chris, I need a center. And so maybe you move McGovern to guard and you bring a center in, and I need another guard. So there's some things that I need before I could give the Jets a win total. But if you were to bring a Deshaun Watson here, I honestly think it could change because you expedite that process a little bit, because that quarterback is going to get you and put you in position to win. So then you need to play clean football. You need to draft a good running back. I believe if you bring in a guy like Watson, which could still be achievable, because you could give away your number 2 pick this year. You could give away your first round pick from Seattle next year, and you could give them a 2023. And so you could still draft Najee Harris and have Deshaun Watson, and you could still sign Allen Robinson, and you could still bring in a guard, and you could still, so these things that you could still do if you have Deshaun Watson. And so I don't know why everyone makes it out so dire that if you were to trade for him, that you wouldn't have any draft capital. Listen, do you really think that Joe Douglas is going to trade away 4 first-rounders? Of course he's not. If you look at Joe Douglas and what he's done as a GM so far, all he's done is make good trades up and down. And so I believe that if we did get Deshaun, the trade would probably be in our favor. And if they got Deshaun, that means that this coaching staff was on board and they together thought that this was the move. And I'm going to trust that too. Just like I'm going to trust if they stick with Sam Darnold, I'm going to trust that these guys are smart enough that they think, okay, we could get him back on track moving forward. And so I think that is the one thing that stands out more than anything is I feel like, at least right now as we sit, I could trust this coaching staff and this GM with whether they keep Sam or they move on. I'm going to be happy because I feel like they are going to be doing things not from a flash standpoint, not from a number standpoint, but they're going to be doing it from a football standpoint. You got Joe Douglas who watched tape, who's that kind of guy. You got Saleh who grew up in this game watching tape and doing those things. You're getting football decisions. And you got LaFleur who comes from a family of football people. Everything that's going to be done with the New York Jets moving forward, I believe, is going to be a football decision, and I'm going to trust it. Now, Krista, I'm going to ask you, out of all the free agent receivers, and there's a few of them, Allen Robinson, Corey Davis, Marvin Jones, Nelson Aguilar, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster, T.Y. Hilton. There's a few free agent guys here that have some value and can bring a veteran presence to this team. What receiver, top 2 receivers or 3 receivers in free agency that you like if the Jets were to bring someone in?
All right, so first of all, if Kevin is watching, he's going to be proud of me because I love your Penn State wide receivers, and that's something I'm going to praise Penn State for. Is they're good wide receivers. And my number 1, I'm going with Chris Godwin. I don't think he's going to make it to free agency. I think the Buccaneers are most likely going to keep him. He's still young. I think if you're able to get a young potential talent who's a bona fide potential number 1 receiver in the free agency, especially when you're the Jets, you go and get him. He's the guy that if he were to enter free agency and the Buccaneers were dumb enough to not franchise tag him, not tag him at all, and they let him hit the open market, I would get him because not only does he have the age, he also has a lot of potential. I know a lot of people like to get on the guy for the drops, but for the most part, the guy has been clutch. I like to see him get all the drops now. So hopefully the Buccaneers say, oh no, let me go and let me go and just let him test free agency. So hopefully he gets all his drops out now. So if the Jets somehow do sign him, he doesn't make any more drops. But he also has a lot of speed. He has deceiving speed. This guy catches everything. He's what you want in a wide receiver, potential number one. He has the speed. He catches the football. I think him with Denzel Mims would complement each other really, really nicely. I think it would be a dream to have Godwin, to have Mims, Crowder. That's not a bad wide receiving core, especially with guys like Barrios that we don't even know, and Vincent Smith, like guys like that. I think having Chris Godwin is really special. So he's my number one guy. If I had to throw money at him, I'd throw the money at him. I'd ask Chris Godwin, what do you want? But of course, I'm not going to pay him like outrageous money, but something fair. He's my number one target. Number two, I have to go with Allen Robinson. The only thing that scares me about Allen Robinson is that he's approaching 28. I don't know when he turns 29. I kind of don't like going after free agent wide receivers when they're near the 30th-year-old, unless your name is DeAndre Hopkins or your Larry Fitzgerald, who seems to play forever. But Allen Robinson, he's a really, really good wide receiver too. And he's able to go and get those balls, those 50-50 balls. He's able to make plays happen. And you made a good point before. He's been working with Mitch Trubisky, and he's still able to put those stats. Now, I think he would be a very, very quarterback-friendly guy, too. I think out of all the wide receivers, I think he's probably the guy that probably most likely might fit the Jets the best with their offense, because I think he would complement Mims the best, because he's a different type of wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's a position-type wide receiver, kind of like a Brandon Marshall-type wide receiver. Now, before you guys get crazy, I'm not comparing Allen Robinson to Brandon Marshall, because I know you guys like to do that a lot, but I'm just saying the type of wide receiver he is. He goes and he's able to be that red zone target that we desperately need. Now, I don't know if this is a popular opinion or unpopular opinion, but I would stay away from Juju Smith-Schuster. I just do not like his antics. I do not like his TikTok dances. I do not like him dancing in his end zone. Whatever he's doing, I want to keep his TikToks away from New York. Because if I have to see Juju and he's signed and he's making these TikTok dances and we're losing, I won't take this dude seriously. I'd stay away from Juju. Although I respect the man's speed, I don't know whether he's a slot receiver at all. He's someone I would stay away from if I'm the New York Jets. Hopefully the Steelers re-sign him, because I do not want this man anywhere near the New York Jets. I don't know what's in the Pittsburgh atmosphere, what's in the air, but somehow, some way, these guys like to go haywire. I don't know. You could stay wherever. Just please, New York Jets, I'm begging you. I do not want Juju Smith. Respect the guy's talent, but I don't want his TikTok antics around my New York Jets. And I guess if I had to pick another guy, that's kind of tough, because for me, I kind of, at that point, those are my two top guys. I think Corey Davis might be an interesting guy, but I don't know how much I pay the guy, because it's like 50-50. I know he showed some potential. He's the number one guy. Didn't really pan out with the Tennessee Titans, and I know they have A.J. Brown, but maybe depending on the contract, I've been a guy like him. Kenny Golladay is an interesting name that not a lot of people bring up. I think he's a guy that I would potentially look at if I'm the New York Jets. And I kind of like Nelson Aguilar, but I just don't know where he fits in the New York Jets. I like the guy's speed, but again, it all depends on price. But I think for me, if you're going to go after wide receivers in the free agent market, for me, it's either Allen Robinson or Chris Godwin. That's probably my two top targets, or possibly a guy like Kenny Golladay.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I like all of those for sure. I mean, with Juju, it depends on the numbers. I mean, I'm not really too big on the TikTok thing,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the culture in which people live, and one thing you can't say, no one's really said he's a bad teammate. He hasn't been in trouble before. This is just how these guys are. They're, and I think in game day, when it comes to the slot and the outside, he just did what he had to do. That's what it was asked of him this year. But when you look at his, his rep share before that, it was about 50-50. So Juju can play on the outside as well. It's not like he's just a slot receiver. So it's going to depend on the numbers. I think his excited attitude with Salah's excited attitude could be a good thing too. And at the end of the day, I just want guys that could come in and really make the quarterback better. But I think in this case, to be honest with you, I think the best receiver available, for Sam is I'm with you. I do like Godwin a lot because
Mhm.
it's a different style. But I mean, I gotta get somebody legit here. You know, if it's Deshaun Watson, Sam Darnold, if it's a new guy, I like Allen Robinson. Now, I'm
Mhm.
not like Allen Robinson on a 5-year deal, but on
Yeah.
a 3-year deal, I
Mhm.
mean, I like Robinson there to
Yep.
bring that professionalism. I mean, this is a guy in Allen Robinson that had 1,400 yards with Jacksonville, 1,200 yards with the
Mhm.
Bears. I mean, this guy is a good receiver. And listen, if you do have Sam Darnold, I understand that Joe Douglas, he wanted an explosive offense, as he said before, but I'm not sure if that's going to be your guy for that. And so I think, a guy, more of a possession type of a receiver, not a blazer. A guy who can go and run every single route and get you production anywhere on the field might be the choice that you might want to go for wide receiver. And so I think Robinson would be my number one play if I had to. And then after Robinson, I would probably say Godwin. I like that 4.42 speed to go along with Mims. I think that could be really special. And I think they could have something there with Crowder in the slot. But there's a few other guys in here. It depends. You can't fix Rome in a day.
Yeah.
And I expect the Jets to probably draft a receiver later on. You also have a guy like Marvin Jones. Now he's 31, but he's had his big contract. I think that, he won't command too much. It's a guy, he played 942 snaps last year. He had almost 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. You got a red zone target for your guy. You got Will Fuller. Now, Will Fuller is a really good receiver when he's healthy. And the problem is that he's not healthy a lot. And
Yeah.
but Fuller he's a guy that has speed. When he's in the game, he's a guy to look out for sure. And right here you're seeing Marvin Jones, you saw, and I mean, T.Y. Hilton, he doesn't fit what we play, and he's on the back
No.
end. He could go to like a championship team off the bench type of deal. But yeah, Marvin Jones is a guy that are just a big body target, a guy who's not a blazer, but he's somebody that I think could get you where you need to be, as a team. And you look, Nelson Aguilar, I'm off of that. Curtis Samuel, Curtis Samuel's 25 years old. He had 851 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's going to be looking for a little bit more of a pay grade.
Yeah.
So I think if you're the guys that you're wanting to pay, right? And here's the thing, you got a guy like Zach Pascal, 834 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's always performed well. So there is value here. There's value to be had here if you don't want to go big time and spend all your money on wide receiver. You could get some guys to come into the Jets here, and I think perform very, very well out of the free agent market. So I wouldn't be stressing this. If the Jets lose out on Allen Robinson, there's more than a few guys on this list that I think could come in and be really important to the Jets passing game. But looking towards the draft, Krista, the Jets are sitting here and you're starting to wonder, I don't think the Jets would go wide receiver. I'd love to have Devonta Smith, but the Jets
Yeah.
aren't going to pick him at 2. And it sucks because, there's a good chance that he's going to Miami with the next pick. Miami just walked into riches because of Houston's incompetence, and now they're going to be able to supply their young franchise quarterback with a dominant receiver. And so, I'm one of those things. It's one of those things where we're not going to have one of those guys, but there's other guys out there. There's guys like Jamar Chase from LSU who didn't play last year, but he had a big season.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people think, he had people around him. I mean, when you're playing with Joe Burrows, Clyde Hilaire, and Justin Jefferson and all these other guys, there's a lot less attention on you, but it's a guy who's projected to run 4.4. He's another receiver in the draft that looks well. Obviously, Devonta Smith. You go ahead, you have Jalen Waddle. He's more on the smaller side. He's expected to run a 4.45. I'm not really big on college football. I kind of piece everything together towards the end, Krista. Maybe you could tell me a little bit more about Waddle. He's projected to be a top 20 pick, maybe higher, but there's no combine, remember. So there's not going to be that hype coming in like before. And so what could you tell me about someone like Jalen Waddle? And could he play on the outside, or is he a slot guy mostly?
He could play both. I think the biggest question mark for Waddle is because of his injury. I don't know how badly that's really going to affect him. But you saw in the national championship how tough that guy is. He did everything in his power to play in that game. And I know Nick Saban took a lot of criticism, like saying like, "Why are you still playing Waddle? Why are you staying playing Waddle?" But I think for me, having Waddle keep on insisting that he wants to play, this shows the type of character he is, the type of player that he is. He's a very tough player. And I think a lot of people kind of forget about him because he's a guy that has unfortunately robbed of an injury, robbed of the season because of his injury. He's a guy that's also really, really fast. He's a guy that can catch the football. And there was talks that these two guys, Devontae Smith and Waddle, were even better than Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs. And guys know that I was very, very high on Henry Ruggs. But looking at these two, if you ever watch the film, these guys are really, really good football players. And that's not to discredit Henry Ruggs or Jerry Jeudy, but Waddle has all the potential in the world. He's fast. He can get open, makes plays. He catches the football. Um, I think these two are really, really good. Devontae Smith is obviously the better wide receiver. I never seen this dude miss, like what Quinn Williams said. I don't think this dude rarely drops the football. He's an overall good wide receiver. Someone that he's your dream wide receiver, basically. But Waddle, I think people really sleep on the dude. I think what you said, I think his size is to be worried about, especially him coming back from injury is a big question mark coming forward. But whoever gets Waddle, you're getting a really, really good player. You're getting a tough guy. He's able to make those catches. You see that catch rate over there, how he's able to catch the football. He uses his body, does everything. He's a overall good wide receiver as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have Simon talking about Rashad Bateman, 6'2", 210, expected to run a 4.54, projected round about 2 to 3 or so. With the Jets, when it starts getting into the later rounds with the receivers, I'm not sure where they're going to go, because in free agency, if they decide to get, one of the big guys, a starting number one wide receiver or close to it, I mean, where are you going to fit this guy in if you're going with a high pick wide receiver? And so it's really going to depend on what the Jets want to do free agency. Do they want to bring in a ready-made guy and pay a little bit of money, or do they want to draft another young guy? Because you already have a young guy in Mims. You got Crowder in the slot. You got no one on the outside. You might have a new young quarterback. You might want to go legitimate wide receiver as it starts to drift. And I think if you keep your picks, and you either draft a quarterback or go with Sam, I think that late 23 pick, I'd rather have a guy like Najee Harris, and get Sam Darnold legit running back where you have to be worried, and then I can start setting up play action with Sam Darnold, and so or someone else. And so I believe that you look at a guy like Rashad Bateman, maybe he could be had, but then where does he play at 4.54? And obviously these times don't mean a lot. If you can run routes, you could do all this kind of stuff. But I think the Jets need a guy with a little bit more speed and at least one of the slots. And Mims is he's deceptively fast, especially once he starts getting going. But I think to have a speedster to challenge the safety and really take the top off of defense, that's something that Joe Douglas was really talking about. And so I think if you're looking at that type of a play, you might go more veteran style with that than to necessarily dig in an early pick with a receiver in the draft. But we'll have to see where the Jets kind of stack out. But me personally, I like some of these guys in the draft. I just like the wide receiver class last year a little bit more as far as how deep it is. That's just my personal opinion. And I think that if the Jets, maybe got another receiver in that draft, it would have made a little bit more sense, because I think when you start looking at it, the Jets need some guard help that I don't know if they're going to fix all in free agency. They still need a pass rusher. They still need depth at linebacker. They still need corners. And so if they're going to go that route, I think receiver might be in the free agency department. But looking at, Krista, the roster that we currently have for the New York Jets, I mean, as a whole, I kind of liked the Jets roster for the receivers. A lot of people that don't watch the Jets, they just look at the receiving group and they just go, oh, well, the Jets don't really have talent at receiver. And I really disagree with that. I think the Jets had more than enough to be a competent football team and actually go out and win games. I think if you had different quarterback play, you had a little bit better offensive line play, obviously, then I think that you may have had different results. I mean, you just look at what Joe Flacco was able to do with Brashard Perryman. I mean, that is why Joe Douglas brought him here. You know, Joe Douglas brought Perryman here to extend and stretch the field, and you saw just that with a quarterback who could actually do it. And then you saw Mims start to kind of come out. I mean, for a long period, for a good couple week stretch there, he's one of the top receivers in his draft class, and he played half of the games and half of the snaps, and he was still top 3 in categories because he was going on a roll. Like, I really like Denzel Mims, and I like what Perryman were able to bring to the table. I think Perryman was misused. I think that he wasn't right by his quarterback and by the designer. And when you saw Flacco come in, you started to see what he could do. I mean, Perryman had 30 receptions on 60 targets for 505 yards, a 16.8 average, and 3 touchdowns, a long of 53, 42 yards a game. I mean, you look at our quarterback, he only averaged about 150 yards a game throwing the football, or 170 yards a game throwing the football. So, I mean, it was tough sledding for receivers out there. You know, I really like what Braxton Berrios showed as a depth, as a guy coming off the bench. I like Jamison Crowder. I still believe Jamison Crowder is one of the best slot receivers in the game. I mean, this is a guy that caught 59 out of 89 targets. He had almost 100 catches the year before. I mean, he's a good receiver. And so when I look at this, and in combination with Chris Herndon, who hopefully I think that this staff is going to give him another chance, and I think he could do some really good things. I mean, this not bad. I don't think it's that bad. I mean, the stats are very deceiving on what type of players are actually on the roster. And I think with a better quarterback, with a better system and better offensive line play, I think you could have a building block here. I mean, yeah, maybe Perryman leaves because his contract's expired, but if you bring in an Allen Robinson in here, right? You bring in a Chris Godwin. I'm very happy with Chris Godwin, Jamison Crowder, Mims, and Herndon to start off the first year with Saleh as they continue to build and see who fits and who doesn't with the current roster. And so, you know, I think if I had to give a grade on the receiver department, I would give them a C. I think when you look at who is throwing them the ball, the dysfunction with the play calling and giving Frank Gore every single possession and not really having a plan, I just really honestly think that they did a pretty good job considering. I don't think if you look at Jamison Crowder, you thought he played bad. I don't think Perryman played bad. I don't think Mims played bad. Herndon definitely fell off from what he was supposed to be. And then you got some surprises with guys like Berrios this year and even Ty Johnson catching the ball out of the backfield. I mean, 16 receptions, 20 targets, 6.2 yards per catch. I think he did very well for himself. I think maybe in this offense they feature a catching back a little bit more, and that could be very beneficial for guys like that. So I think the catching department, I think the receiver department, I think they did pretty well. And so I'll give them a C, Krista. What would be the grade that you would give them?
Absolutely, I agree with you with everything. Despite everything, our wide receivers did the best they could. I really like Denzel Mims' potential. I think, for like you said, I think for me, although I really would love to have a Devontae Smith, I'd rather have one of these big-time college wide receivers. I think it's smart for the Jets to go after a veteran wide receiver like a guy like Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin to round out the roster because we need draft picks to fix other holes, other issues. And I just think that there's some pretty good wide receivers to have in free agency, and I think the Jets should just take advantage of it. And I really like Denzel Mims. I think he has potential to be a potential 2 number 1 type wide receiver. He showed his speed. There's times where Sam Darnold kind of overlooked him because he doesn't go through all his progressions. I've seen Denzel Mims get open, but unfortunately Sam wasn't there to get the football out to him because he looked at a different read. And I really like Jamison Crowder. I think we both feel the same way about Jamison Crowder, one of the best slot wide receivers possibly in the league. He's a guy that knows how to get open. He's one of Sam Darnold's favorite targets. It's unfortunate, like I mentioned before, how this offense lacked any creativity. So we really didn't get to see a lot of these players' full potential because unfortunately most of it was wasted on giving Gore these stupid running down the middles, these stupid screen passes that made me want to throw my TV out the window. But there's a lot of potential, and I like Berrios' depth, like you mentioned. It's dude somehow, some way somehow gets open. I don't care what you guys want to say. I know a lot of people like to get on me calling him some scrub, but it takes talent to get that kind of open and be able to still make a play the way that he's able to make plays, whether Sam Darnold's able to get him the football when he's scrambling, but somehow, some way, Barrios is always open. And there's potential on this wide receiving core. And I think I am hopeful of Chris Herndon as well. I think a new coaching staff will do him well. I think a lot had to do with, like you mentioned a few episodes ago, a lot of it's concentration because this tight end group barely ever got the football, like you mentioned a lot. And I think you made a really good point about Chris Herndon. When he gets the football, I think he overthinks. It's like, oh man, I have to go make a play because this may be the only time I ever get the football. I think a lot of it was the fact that Adam Gase barely threw the football. That's kind of how I feel about Chris Herndon. I think a new coaching staff, maybe when they look through the tape and they'll see the same thing. But I'm hopeful of Chris Herndon with this new coaching staff as well as our other tight end group, because there's no way how the Jets were able to pay this tight end group in somehow, some way that you're telling me they're no longer good or something like that. I really think a lot of it has to go to Adam Gase not using the tight end group enough, and because of poor quarterback play, partly because of Sam and partly because of Adam Gase. And yeah, I think he's a fair judgment. I'm not saying we have that superstar wide receiver, but I think having a guy like Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson would take this wide receiving core over the top. Whether we keep Sam or we draft a guy or we get a guy possibly maybe shot in the dark somehow, some way, not jinxing it, get a guy like Deshaun Watson. I think having Chris Godwin and to round out this wide receiving core, or an Allen Robinson for that nature, wouldn't be a bad wide receiving core as everyone else is making it out to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at Denzel Mims, I mean, people are saying, well, where was Mims all year? Well, he was hurt for the first 5 games or so with the hamstring injury that he got in camp. So that's why he wasn't there. But once he started playing, I mean, you're looking at 7 targets, 4 receptions, 3 targets against Kansas City. 3 targets, 2 receptions, 8 against New England, 4 receptions, 7 against the Chargers, 3 receptions, 8-4, 3-2, 4-3. And so you're talking about 57, 66, 66, 75% catch percentage. So, I mean, you got to throw the guy the ball. I mean, if you consider him the best receiver on the team or close to the best receiver on the team, you got to give him more than 4 targets. He had 5 games he had where he's targeted less than 5 times. I mean, the Jets struggled with protecting their quarterback, and the Jets struggled with their quarterbacks when they did have protection to push the ball down the field, to get it to the guys that they wanted to. And a lot of that had to do with Sam Darnold's acquisition, looking and scanning the field. He locked on one receiver a lot of times. There was a lot of times that Denzel Mims was open, he didn't get the ball, or another receiver was open, he didn't get the ball. And so that's something that they're going to have to discuss and if they could fix. Because what's the point of going out and drafting Devonta Smith if you don't have a quarterback that could push the ball down to Devonta Smith? Because if you can't even use Brashard Perryman correctly, how could we use Devonta Smith? Now, don't get me wrong, new coaching staff, new scheme, maybe it works, but are you going to stake all that on one guy? So I'm not sure how that's going to go for the New York Jets, but I can tell you right now that Denzel Mims, he was good, man. He was one of the better rookies at wide receiver, coming off a hamstring and a season for a team that almost lost all their games and just kind of came on a little bit at the end. And so, you know, how could you really judge the guy when he's only getting 3 targets a game and he still has a good catch rate? You know, he's still having a good catch rate in my opinion. And look at this. Here's another stat to throw at you. In the Kansas City game where Mims played, he played 96% of the snaps. Okay? When you look at the Chargers game or the Dolphins game, I mean, he's playing 80% of the snaps. There's only 1 game that he played, 2 games where he played where he was under 80%, and that was against New England, the second game, week 17, and against Buffalo in week 7. Other than that, he's playing more than 80%. If he's playing more than 80% of the snaps, he should be getting more than 3, 4, 6. It should be more than that. So the Jets have to clean up their passing game if they want to be legitimate contenders in this league. And we talked about the quarterbacks, the division. We talked about, the AFC, the conference, and how things are changing. You look at this Jets schedule, and it's not as easy as people have come out and said. Now, it depends on how it breaks out time-wise, all this kind of stuff. But you got Tampa Bay, you got New Orleans, you got Tennessee, you got Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, you got the Bengals and Burrows, you have Bills, you have the Dolphins, you have the Patriots, you have the Falcons, you have the Panthers, you have the Texans, the Colts, the Broncos, and then your division again. So, I mean, it's not that easy. I mean, I could see loss, I could see 10 losses. Absolutely, I could see 10 losses on the schedule. From what we saw, I mean, you're not guaranteed anything until they start piecing this roster together. So they've got some work to do. And they've got to know that the quarterback that's on their team is that guy, because this is too vital a time for the New York Jets to get this wrong. They got to get the coach right. They got to get the players right. And this has to be the time when you look back on the Jets 5 years from now and you say, wow, hiring Saleh and moving on from or getting this offensive coordinator to help someone like Sam really turn things around. But it has to happen now, because if the Jets miss out on finding a quarterback that works for them, they are going to be yet in the boat again that Jet fans know too often, and we know this one, where your team is a playoff team and they have a quarterback that can't take them over the top. We've seen this too often. And so they go and they get a veteran until they find a young guy who they're forced to take, because it's one of those things where I want to do things fresh. But this staff might believe that they can pull something out of the talent that's here. And if they do that, I'm going to trust them. And so I'm super juiced for this coach. I'm super juiced for this staff. I'm super juiced to see what's going to happen in the draft. And we're going to be with you every step of the way. And all I'm asking you guys to do is to please share this video on your page. Just 2 clicks. We don't talk politics. We don't talk politics. And we don't curse and do anything vulgar. We're just looking to try to take it to the next level. And if that's bringing the show to a network, if that's working for a paper, if that's doing whatever, that's what I'm trying to do here. And I'm doing it by showing my passion as a Jet fan. I don't get paid to do this. Everything that I do, all the research, all the videos, all the pictures, all the stuff that JR does with the production, all the knowledge and stuff that Krista gives, we all do this on our own time, and we all have goals in mind or steps in mind to move forward. And the only way we could get there is by you guys, not us. We can only put the work. You guys got to take it to the next level by watching, consuming, and sharing. And so please help us out and do that so we can take this show to the next level. We'll try to go back and answer some questions if we can. The responses wind up being a lot. There's hundreds of responses. Yeah. So we tried our best to come in and hit a few. Remember, we're not always going to have the same opinions. But we try to be respectful of each other, and those that don't get booted, because that's not the type of thing we're running here. We want a place where people could come and feel safe with their opinions, that people could come and be excited about their team and not get bashed because they have an opinion. So keep it clean, keep it nice, and let's get juiced up, like our new head coach said, right? He mentioned it several times in his interviews. He's excited. I'm excited. Chris is excited. Everyone on the Jets crew team is excited. You guys should be excited too. And you know what? We'll look 2 years from now and we'll see how true our excitement was. But right now, at this point, with Adam Gase gone, with the staff that we've brought on, you have to be happy with the steps that the Jets have taken. And if they keep rolling with this, eventually, I think good things will happen. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Please listen to our show anywhere you listen to podcasts. Okay, guys? If you listen to Apple, a podcast on your Apple, Google, anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're probably on there. So just type in Jets Guru, and me and Kevin from Live Rounds, we come on Sundays. We have a host of topics that we talk about, because sometimes you guys can't just sit here for an hour and watch us, but you might be driving somewhere on the weekend. You could plug us into your car through Bluetooth or, aux cable, whatever, and you can listen to us. So we're trying to give you Jets content throughout the week. We have some write-ups that we've done today. Go and check our page out. I did a write-up on Saleh earlier. And so we're trying to give you different takes, and we're working on something really special for Jets Guru, and maybe even creating our own network moving forward where we combine with other Jet shows around the internet and we put together a world where you guys can come and consume all Jets media throughout the whole week. And so I'll be definitely contacting people in the future. But you know what? Let's take one step forward. New coach, new attitude, new team. Let's get excited, baby. You guys have a great weekend. Be safe. Enjoy the playoff games. Look out for Josh Allen. If Mahomes doesn't play, they're going to the Super Bowl. That sucks.
Yeah.
But hey, we got to get there too. We got to get our guy, got to get him coached up, and we got to get there too. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. JR, thanks for all your help. Chris, thanks for all your help. You guys are amazing. Have a good weekend. Peace.
All I hear, go get the money. So I go get it. Hate means I do something right. So I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him. I hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I'ma let him. All I hear, go get the money.